Hopefully I am. Thank you. That's awesome. Now, before I get started, hopefully this works. For me, not for you. Yes? Excellent. So what I want to do this morning is just spend a little bit of time looking at some other aspects of our God. We have been inundated in the last little while and next Sunday as well with Craig, so sorry about that. I don't know how that works, it doesn't rain at Paws sometimes, but anyway, we'll be looking at the tongue next week, and this side of the hall got one of the jokes that I put into the newsletter when it was announced yesterday about being lost for words without a tongue, but anyway, the other side was a bit slower, so we'll get there. So I did want to just spend a little bit more time on our God and what he's done, and then I guess coming into the reading that we've got today, some of the things that we can take away personally, because there's no point coming and having a look at these sorts of things if we just go, oh wow, that's amazing, that's facts and figures, but how do we actually change our lives? What do we do differently? And I was excited when we were going through the last study that we did and got to the end, and Daniel said, wow, there's a lot of information there at the end there. Is it possible that you might slow down a little bit and just expand on it next time? I said, oh, that sounds like a really good idea. So hopefully that's what we're going to do today. And for those, some of us in the hall were actually here at the Bible class that we did a couple of weeks ago. So we'll just have a little bit of a quick recap for those that weren't here, and then as well just dive into some of the other things that we want to cover off today. So firstly, I put up this little slide here because whenever I'm talking to someone at work or anyone that I bump into, or I'm trying to share my hope and witness to those people, then this is generally where I would start, because for me, there is no other real option. If God's, in the Bible that we've got, the first pages say that God did it. And we've got this really strong message coming through in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, but then continuing on. And so by basically looking at what God said and then the following actions, we can see that God's in control. He's started this process. He's got this plan and purpose, which he's then outworking through Genesis 1, but also then right through into our lives now. And we said at the last session, was there any of these items that we're covering off now, people are happy to use? People are really comfortable. They know enough about it to be able to share their own faith. And I thought I might just ask again today, not that the people that were there last time have to repeat themselves, but if anyone's got any one particular thing that they use for when they're witnessing to people who might be saying, look, I'm not really sure. Like, why are we here? What are we doing when we're, get up, go through the motions and then go back to sleep at night? Is there anyone that's got something that they just say, this is my go-to witness, just to start off?
God made us in his image.
Right, okay. So that's how you would then link into...
It feels great and hopefully gets across to other people.
Yep. Good, excellent. Any other comments, any thoughts? You know, we've all got our own faith. Some faith is this big, some's this big. Today it might be that big, tomorrow it might be this big, depending on what's going on. But is there anything that people use? Yeah.
And we always say a lovely day and talk about the weather and that sort of thing. I explain how that I never complain when it rains because we're so dependent on it. And when you hear people complaining, we say we need the rain and God provides it. So
Yeah.
just go in something as simple as that.
Excellent. I think, and if as soon as you feel comfortable doing that, I think it then becomes natural. And the first time, first time you do it, it might be a little bit awkward, maybe. I mean, you don't necessarily want to be pulling out the Bible in the first conversation because that could turn some people off. However, it's always good to be able to link in that in a casual sense. So that's really good, Leonie. Leon, was there?
Well, if I lived in a casual sense, if I read those sort of things in the Roman wall, I'd think of the way when I was sitting in the canopy and God's creation.
Yep, excellent, good. Uncle John as well.
We had an interesting one just a couple of weeks ago
Yes, yeah. Yeah. Oh. Mm. Excellent. So trying to find maybe some common ground there to be able to then link in and say, well, you know, we both sort of believe this and you know, this is my hope, but dig a little bit deeper. Excellent. Good. All right. Well, for those that weren't here last time, I'm just going to do a little quick recap as to what we went through. And then for those that were here, hopefully you'll be able to pick up some of these and we'll be able to then dive in. So last time we went quite big. So universe, planetary aspects of God's creation. Today we want to drill into a little bit deeper and maybe in some of the, depending on how far we get, on some of the areas of the human body which just are fascinating. So hopefully we'll be able to look at that in a little bit of detail today. So recapping then, we covered off on some aspects of the stars, so how many there were, how big they were, how much space we're talking about when we cover off areas of the universe, how huge and amazing it is in contrast to some of the things that we might be bumping into day to day, how our solar system is just right. Does anyone remember some of the images that we pulled up last time for the solar system and our planet being just right? Is that?
It's a video that shows going from the image right down.
Yes, yeah.
The other way started off with a video.
Or both. So you've covered it off well. Any other, just one picture that anyone remembers? It's an old or little kid's story. Something that is just right. Not too heavy. Goldilocks, excellent. So did you say Three Bears? Oh, interesting how someone remembers Goldilocks and someone remembers the Three Bears. Good mix, there you go. So so we had Goldilocks. So we had, it's not too hot, not too cold, just right. And then we looked at the whole of the universe and the earth and how things just fit in and the distance from the sun and all of that. So again, that's a lot of information, but then we covered off that it was just right. The next one was probably the world's most dangerous experiment that I've done at a Bible seminar and handing around a mousetrap, which probably wasn't a smart thing in hindsight, especially because I loaded it first and then handed it around. But the idea of that was to say that in a mousetrap there are 5 things. And if you take one of those things away, then the mousetrap doesn't work. And yet, it's there. And it doesn't just pull together all at the same time. You could have 1,001 bases or 1,001 latches, or you could have all of those in a box, but the mice will just run all over it. There's nothing there to worry them. But in this case, a mousetrap is there, and once it's set up and it's got its cheese on there, then it's ready to do its job. But without one of those things, it doesn't work. And then going even more complex, we then looked at the watch. And if you're walking along a beach and you find a watch, you don't just go, oh, wow, that's amazing. That's just sort of, pulled itself together and got the chimes working right and the timing and the ticking and all that. It's actually, there's something behind it. It works really well, just the way it is. Then we had a really famous videographer that was there in Craigig, Attenborough. And everyone was fascinated by that. I had to show the video a couple of times of this frog that I found in the backyard. Then we had the real Attenborough when we were looking at a chameleon or chameleon, and what a fascinating animal that was. Then we had a look at a few birds, and I won't go through all of the detail, but you can just pick any of these birds and it's absolutely fascinating the way that they are designed. With a woodpecker, for instance, is just bashing its head against a piece of wood with no damage to its brain, because behind its pecker is a little bit of a cushion that you can just be able to absorb that. It still does the damage to the wood, but not to the brain. And it's just there. And that's the only bird apparently has got that there. Penguins, you know, the big fat ones on the outside, the skinny ones on the inside, and then they rotate around whilst they're walking, because if you stay on the outside, then you freeze to death. But they all go, all right, now it's my turn. Well, they probably don't go like that, but, you know, then they move in into the centre, and off they go, and they all are able to survive. Plus a whole lot of things where they go out and catch fish and bring them back, and they come back at the right time when the eggs are hatching, so they're all ready to go with the males and the females, and they've got one pair for life. So we showed a few photos of these massive thousands of millions of penguins, and they have to go and find their own one. And they're all dressed in black and white. How do you work out whose is yours? And it's all through the sound that they make. So yeah, pretty fascinating. Anyone remember what this bird was called? Malleefowl. What was so amazing about the malleefowl? Its nest? Yeah. What about the nest was so amazing?
It's a huge mound and it keeps it at the right temperature.
Keeps it at the right temperature. So it digs all this stuff up, piles it on top of the eggs, and then it pokes its nose in as the temperature thermometer works out, oh, it's too hot, so it scratches some off the top. Oh, it's too cold, pile some on. Amazing. God's in control of these, even at that level. We looked at the design of the feather. We won't dig into that too much. And then one bird which I'm fascinated by, they grabbed a whole lot of these Manx shearwater and then distributed around the world, and then they flew back to their own spot, sometimes up to 5,000 kilometres overseas. And they were saying that there's over a 2-week period travelling 5,000 kilometres back to exactly the right spot. So some of these absolutely amazing creatures that were able to do this, yeah, and no one sat down and said, right now, you remember where we are? Here's the GPS coordinates. When you get, put in a little box and taken 5,000 k's away, that's where you need to go to. They just do that. Then we went through a whole lot of other animals. We had looked at the bee, the gazelle, with its heat transfer system in its brain, where the blood from after running would go up through, it would then, the sweat would evaporate, cool it down and go back through the brain before it then goes back through the body. Absolutely fascinating. Snakes, I had a snapping turtle there, which when they open up their beaks, they've got a little growth on the bottom which looks like a worm. So someone comes along, typically something that they want to eat, they try and grab it and then it just bites it. And then how does it determine that it wants to grow things there? Anyway, this recap's turning out to be a session in itself, so let's keep going. So with our reading today, I thought there's a couple of things in here which I just wanted to refer to as we go through our discussion today about the human body. So we've looked quite big picture. We started looking at some animals and then zoom in a little bit on the human body today. But again, we can't look at the whole lot because it's obviously quite complex, and the things that we want to cover off today, we want to go through in the next sort of 20-25 minutes and cover off some of these in a little bit of detail. So David says, I've just picked out this one verse here. I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, marvellous are your works, wonderful, and that my soul knows right well. I'm absolutely sure that this is the case. And so this is where we finished off last time, and having a look at the human body and just listing out a whole lot of different things that are absolutely fascinating about the human body. So you're starting off on the outside and having a skin, a protective skin, which is able to keep all of the, well, most of the viruses and diseases out just in itself. It's got its protective layer. And then you start going through into deeper and deeper elements of the body, which we'll have a look at as we go through this morning. So one of the things that I just wanted to spend a little bit of time on this morning is the eye. Now you might remember this one here last time. I think if I just go like this, this was the chameleon that we had a look at last time, down the bottom here, and it's eye that goes up, down, left, right, diagonals, both ways. Pardon me? Mothers. And they've also got it in the back of the head, that's it. So plenty of technology there. So this is one of the sections that I wanted to just have a look at. And I don't know if anyone's looked at it, and if you have, you'll just have to bear with us at the moment. But if you can see it, can you see that okay up the back there, sort of? Yeah? What I like to think about is I look at it as a ping pong ball. Now, it's obviously a little bit more complex than a ping pong ball, all right? But you think about it, and if you haven't thought about how your eyes, and please don't think this is a little bit weird, but just like sit there looking forward and then try and look to the right just like that with your own eyes and think, how are you actually doing that? Now, I know some people are looking to the left, but that's okay. That's all right. So looking to either direction, how do you think that's actually happening? And you might not have thought about it before. Okay, your eyes just do that, right? How do you think it's happening? Was someone answering then? Huh? Yeah, so brain gives a message out, but then what's next? So it's muscles contract. I love it. So this diagram here just shows you a little bit of the technology that we've got in here. No, can't see that there. So if you're looking at, say, just on this one here, you've got a muscle that's on the right-hand side of your eye, and it goes back around and is connected, see as it goes back through, to a bone behind your eye. So if you want it to move to the right, and it's like an elastic band type thing, if we can think about it like that, and it contracts like that. So it just pulls together, tightens, so that because it's tighter, it then will just pull your eye, if my whole head is my eye, just as an example, if it contracts around the side, then it will just be contracting and pulling like that, okay? And it's got one on either side, it's got one up the top and the bottom, and it's also got them on the angles there. So if you wanted to look like that, then it does up and down like that. But one thing that I find is fascinating is that the one that's up the top, it's called the superior oblique, which is helps with downward and outward movement. So it's actually from, like, just from the top side here, it goes up like that, and then through a bone, and then back, like that. So I then think, okay, it's like a mouse trap. It's got a couple of elements here. How does that actually work? What is made first? What part of that is made first? Well, as we've got in Psalm 139, you don't actually know which part comes first, because it says here, verse 15, my substance was not hid from thee when I was made in secret and curiously wrought in the lowest parts of the earth, or the womb. Thine eyes did see my substance, yet being imperfect, and in thy book, and it goes on to being David's then encouragement about how he responds to that amazing creation. So within this process of the design is some things that are there that are going to provide someone who has no interest in God whatsoever to say, I'm not sure. How does that actually work? If God's not involved, then that's just way too fluky. So I think there's parts of our body, like this one, which will actually help us go, actually, God has got this amazing design which is there. And that's quite apart from the actual, I found a whole lot of videos online, but I won't show them today, but just about the lens itself. So you think about the lens itself. When it's really bright, what happens? So, yeah, it closes up. So why does it close up? Because it doesn't need too much light coming in. Then when it's really dark at night time, and you can do this as a bit of an experiment tonight, just to prove me right. Tonight, in front of the mirror, just grab your phone with a light on it, and have it all dark, and then turn in front of the mirror, and then just turn your iPhone light on, or your phone light on, or even the proper light, and you'll see your lens is quite big, and then as the light comes on, it just goes zoop, like that. And you don't even think about it. So it's, again, the mind's thinking, oh, yep, here's a instruction. And then the same thing, though you can't really see it, when you turn the light out, the lens goes out bigger. So another thing which is quite good. And then also when you've got some writing up close here, you can zoom in on that. And then there's some writing right down the back there, which if you've got reasonable eyesight, you'll be able to focus on that as well. So you've got this longer distance and shorter distance, which then helps us in living our lives now. So these eyes as well are there when you're first born. And you've also got them as you go through life. Now, sometimes they wear out like other body parts, but they're still there and they're still doing their job as well as what we can through our lives. So that's one thing which this is one of my witnesses to anyone that's not sure about it. I say, let's have a quick look at the eye. And that just makes me think there's no way that this part of the body could be there without any involvement from our God. Then I just put this up last time without really spending too much time on it, but I thought this is one. I'm going to just go through very quickly some of these and then zoom in on just one. Is that?
We're going to run out.
Oh, I'm going to run out of time, run out of something. So, does anyone from if you haven't had much involvement across the human body in this sort of level of detail, is there anyone that doesn't know much about one of these systems, so that at least we can then learn something today? Then we'll zoom in on one of the systems that we don't have. Yes. Number three, endocrine system. Okay. Does anyone know what the endocrine system does? There's some medical people here, I'm sure. Huh? There's always a nerd.
Hormones that are released around the body.
Excellent. Good. So you've got hormones, various hormones, and it starts and stops in releasing them at various levels. So yes, good one. Excellent. I thought someone might ask about the integumentary system, because I've never heard about that one before. Has anyone heard about that? It's got exocrine?
Well, exocrines are sweat glands.
Excellent. So it covers, from what I'm told, covers sweat, covers skin, covers hair, covers nails, and other exocrines, so things that are on the outside. That's excellent. Any others that people want to know about? Normally, if I'm doing this with kids, I'll always ask about the urinary system, just so we can talk about wee. But that's a very important one. If you don't know much about that, then if that's not working properly, and I've got a couple of older clients that have got issues with urinary tract infections, and maybe some people in here have known about that, have known people with that, and it's really painful, and if it's not working, then it has a whole lot of other issues. And we'll come across that in a section when we're covering off another one. Sorry, what was that?
I could say number 5 is an interesting one.
Number 5, the immune system. Yep. So lymphatic. So we might have heard of lymph nodes a bit with various viruses of late. Various pathogens or enemies to our body that comes in. This is the system that rises up to fight that system. So there's a fluid that the body carries around in this system called lymph, and that's actually carries a whole lot of these systems that helps. Sorry, what's this? Soldiers. I love that. Soldiers to fight off the enemies from the outside. Excellent. Good. So lots of other things in the body which we don't even think about. I mean, I don't think anyone's got up this morning going, right, I hope my renal system's working well, and my all of this. I guess it just works for most of us most of the days. And after playing soccer yesterday and rolling around on the paddock, some of my muscular systems have been affected, but they'll get back into it, all being well. So I just wanted to then go into a couple of bits and pieces. There's some pictures there which I would normally just run through a bit of the detail, but one of the things is linking into what I was going to talk about was having a look at the blood, and it ties in a little bit with our discussion yesterday with the sacrifices and life being in the blood, because I think we don't actually often think about that ourselves. It's just there, it just keeps happening. It's healthy most of the time, sometimes it's not, and there's various times that you come across people that have got issues with their blood, and it's really serious. And doctors don't muck around. When there's an issue with the blood, they're right onto it. I do blood donations and plasma donations, and the people behind the counter, they're so thankful when you come in to do your donation, and it's almost like a telemarketer every now and again. If you can't get there, they're harassing you to come in, and your blood is particularly needed at this time. It's like, you don't know, maybe it is, I don't know, but you get attacked. So what I wanted to do first up, and maybe some people in the room might not be able to find it, but does everyone know how to find their pulse? Yeah, I'll just normally grab my first two fingers and wrap it around my other wrist, or you can go your neck. Yes, we've got some other people that know a bit about it, and see for 15 seconds how many pulses that we've got. All right, I'll start the time now. Okay, 15, approximately. What was a range, or what's someone's pulse that they've got that we're able to count out in 15? Yep? 17. So generally to get, yep? None. All right then. One of our systems isn't working. So 17. So generally speaking, we talk about it in a minute. So times by 4. So what's yours times by 4? 68. We've got some maths geniuses in here. So anyone in and around 68? Yeah. All right. Anyone a bit lower than 68? Anyone healthy-ish? Yeah. 60. Yeah. So 40 to 45. We've got a fitness freak down the front here. Yeah. Yeah. Oh. Well, I didn't. Yeah. 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 It was an interesting story because sorry, we've got someone whose heart rate's probably just gone through the roof now. So we'll do it again. We're at 140 or something. I did actually go, I was relatively fit back a couple of years ago, and I went in to donate blood, and normally I would ride my bike there from South Terrace into town, and so by that stage, my heart's pumping and ready to go. Well, this time our work designed a team to go in there, and so they got a little minibus to pick us all up, and we all sort of just got up from my seat at work and got and sat in another seat and went and sat in another seat, and they then tested my heart rate, and I think it was around about 45. And the nurse came in, the head nurse came in, "Are you okay?" It's like, "Oh, I've never felt better like this." Anyway, they got really worried about it, so I said, "Oh, just give me a couple of minutes." So I went out the front of the building and up and down the stairs a few times and came back. I was about like 55 or 60, and they were like, "Oh, that's perfect, we'll tick you down to that." So blood pressure is really important. So we've got to make sure that we're keeping our health and physical fitness, so that then we can then keep our spiritual fitness. But I just wanted to come through a couple of things around the blood. Now, you might not know this, or you might know this, but again, this is something that is designed and it just works for most people. It's a very high percentage, it just works. There are some cases where it doesn't, and there's intervention by medical professionals to be able to help this around. But 100,000 kilometres of pipes that help the blood come from the heart out to all of the bits of our body. And you've got a heart which starts off with an aorta, and some of us have had a little bit more involvement in our aortas than we probably than others have, if they need to be attended to, a bit of maintenance on them. But 100,000 kilometres starts off from this big aorta, and then it splits into another one, then it splits into some more, until it gets right down to the extremities of your body, when they're just tiny, really thin arteries, and then they change from arteries into veins, Does anyone know the big difference between an artery and a vein? What's that? The number of valves. Hmm? Okay, so we've got experience here. So we've got an artery that's going out from the heart.
One takes oxygen, one supplies oxygen to the body, and the other one turns up deoxygenated blood back to the heart.
Excellent, good. So the first comment was the number of valves. So how many valves does everyone think are in the artery side of things? None. And we don't know. We don't want to estimate how many valves there are on the other side, but there's more than none on the other side. Yeah. So lots and lots. Now I have done it in the past, and I won't use up more time today. But if you do find a vein, which is generally the blue ones on your arm, you can actually, because these veins are coming back towards your heart. Okay. So if you push down on your vein and then push your blood away, sort of back along the vein, you can see where the valves pop up because it's pushing the blood away and then it tries to get back and it gets stopped by a valve in there. All right, I won't try and do it now because it won't. Yeah, one-way valve, and it stops the deoxygenated blood going back towards your heart. So again, it gets right to the end of that artery system, and then when it turns around and comes back, or the vein system, it's a different system. Okay, so amazing how that might be designed, and it's just in your body. So 100,000 kilometres, I think it's about 4 times, the size of the Earth, the circumference of the Earth. So if you take all of your arteries out and veins, join them up together, it'll wrap around the world 4 times. So pretty amazing how that can go. We've already mentioned, won't go through this in a lot of detail, but the blood transfers oxygen and food or nutrients. But then also, once the oxygen's been used up and it converts into carbon dioxide, or the food or the nutrients been used and it converts into waste products, then it comes back along, I say the red train line or the blue train line. Okay, you've got trains going one way, delivering the oxygen and all the nutrients, and then on the other side it's the blue track and it's picking up the carbon dioxide and the waste products, and it goes back through the other systems that we've talked about just before. So takes oxygen out, removes carbon dioxide. So we've got that there, and what else does the blood do? Does anyone know, some things when you're starting to maybe temperature-wise? It regulates body temperature. Again, sort of like a gazelle that we looked at last time. When they go off running, the blood can go to the surface. So if anyone's getting a bit hot and feeling a bit warm, then that's because your blood can then come to the surface. So then it can emit some of that temperature away from your body. I do cold showers in the morning, and it pulls your blood right into your centre organs. So your skin goes white. It's very fascinating, yes. And it goes right back into your vital organs, and that's because it's trying to protect those things that are most important for you. All right? So it's a good one. Try it tomorrow morning. No, you won't be doing that? Okay. Red blood cells, just as another fact, they live around about 120 days, and they go through the heart about 75,000 times. In those 120 days, they'll go through the whole process 75,000 times. Now, I'll just put these up because it does have a lot of information here, and because it's someone's 70th birthday today, I thought I'd put up here 75 years. So, Dad, you got another 5 to get to 2.5 billion heartbeats. Someone's used up a couple more heartbeats this morning based on some information about health, so it might be a little bit more for you, or you just might not make it to 75, I don't know. But there's others that have in the room that are older than 75. So, you've used up your 2.5 billion heartbeats and plus some. So amazing how this one pump, it's not like we go in, or some people do maybe, go in at half time and get a new one. Some parts are replacing. I know Uncle Pete down the front, he's got some elements of pig inside him to keep him going on some parts of the heart, which is absolutely fascinating when you start thinking about what this heart's doing for us. So there we go. There's some other fun facts about the blood that's going around, again, that we don't even think about. One of the ones that's in the middle there, red blood cells, if we were to take each of them and just put them on one on top of the other, it'd be a 50,000 kilometre high stack. Again, twice the circumference of the world. So you think about all of this information that's inside of us, which we don't even really think about. Lots of other things in there, and just the complexity, and scientists, every time I'm looking at this, there's new facts and new figures around it. They just keep drilling into the amazing and amazing nature of this, and every time you've got a better microscope, then you can just see more and more. And the scientists a couple of years ago will say, right, that's it. That's the most detail that we've got. Then someone comes out with another version of a microscope, and actually that's just a starting point for another couple of layers of information in there. So yeah, pretty fascinating. This is just a picture that I found. It helped explain the system that we've got within the body, which we don't even think about. So you're thinking arteries and veins, again, and it starts in the heart. So you've got the red blood cells, which have got the oxygenated blood, which is red, which is coming from the lungs and then getting pumped out along the arteries out to everywhere, past. There's another organ that we've got, the small intestines, which is generating all of the nutrients out of the stomach, and as the blood passes past there, it then piles out some of the nutrients into the blood, and then it goes off and delivers it around the body. And then as the blood's coming back through along the system of veins, then it's grabbing all the waste, going back through all the other organs, and then dumping it in there, going back through the heart to be pumped into the lungs, to get oxygen to then go and do it all again. And then the other side of it, which is what I keep finding fascinating, is that we're on a planet that as we're breathing in oxygen and out carbon dioxide, there's things out there that thrive on breathing in carbon dioxide and breathing out oxygen for us. So again, amazing that we're on the planet that does that for us. So I'll just put this up here because we've already had some experts help us with this. So one of the things that fascinates me, that we wake up in the morning, this is all just working for us, and we don't even really have to think about it. The thing that I take away from this, though, is that this is one of the central parts of our body. God's made us. It's a good idea to be able to look after this. So treating our body as a temple, something that is made in the image of God, if we're looking after that, then we'll have the best opportunity to be able to use it and keep our witness going. I put these two quotes up, or this one quote up last time, and it just, every time I look at it, I just keep thinking, it just reminds me that when I look at all of this history, all of this detail, and look at all of this nature, then I am really without excuse. I look at how God's made us. We'll look at a couple of extra verses out of Psalm 139, but it's really obvious that God's made us. There is a reason for it in that verse 22, for God's invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made, so that they, everyone who is not really believing this, the perspective of God, they're without excuse. So just wanted to have a look at a couple of things out of Psalm 139 before we close. But just as a reminder, this is something that from a personal point of view, this is what we need to take out. We need something that there's one or two or three things that we can actually take away from this study of the human body, as well as the big picture of the universe, and see what our lives are meant to be. So when we start off reading Psalm 139, verse 1, O Lord, thou hast searched me and known me. And in a perspective of how detailed our bodies are and how amazing the universe and the solar system are, God, in verse 2, knows our down-sitting and our uprising and understands our thoughts are far off. So before we even think of our thoughts, we're told in other spots, God knows. But God's afar off, maybe in distance, but he understands. He knows when we're sitting down, he knows we're upright when we're rising up, and he understands our thoughts are far off. Verse 4, which we'll have a look at next week, there is not a word in my tongue, but lo, our Lord, O Lord, thou knowest it altogether. And the conclusion for me is towards the end, is in verse 17, when David responds to this amazing involvement by God in his life, and he says in verse 17, how precious also are thy thoughts unto me, O God, how great is the sum of them, and if I should count them, they are more in number than the sand. When I awake, I am still with thee. And then in conclusion, the last couple of verses in this psalm is in verse 23, where David says, having looked at all of this, he says, search me, O God, and know my heart. Not my pumping valve that's there pushing the blood around. This is his innermost thoughts. This is David saying, God, I want you to come into my heart. I want you to know what's there. Try me, assess me. Make sure that once you've looked at my thoughts and see if there's any wicked way in me, so that can be dealt with, and then lead me in the way everlasting. So hopefully there's one or two things in there that we can take away. And I just also wanted to say thanks very much for a great camp. Really enjoyed being part of it, and hopefully we can be encouraging each other towards that way everlasting. So thanks, Jordan.